Hi everybody and welcome to tonight's Monday Meals. Tonight I'm making a cottage pie baked potato. To be honest, I'm not really sure why these are called cottage pie baked potatoes, but I found the recipe online. I thought it looked super yummy, so I'm going to give it a whirl. You can click on the link and this week it'll bring you to the exact link recipe that I used while making this recipe. So without further ado, let's get into the video tonight. What you're going to do first is you're just going to wash your potatoes. And then I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of EVOO, and I'm going to rub the potatoes. This just makes a really nice crispy skin. You can add salt and pepper if you would like to, and then what you're going to do is you're going to stab each potato like 6 or 7 times. Disclaimer, tonight's video might look really similar to last week's because as I'm cooking this, I realize this is basically almost all the same ingredients that I used last week, which makes sense why I already had almost everything. But what I have going on here is I have 1 medium onion and 2 carrots. Prior to showing you this, I cooked up 1 pound of 93% turkey, and I left the grease in the bowl. I didn't drain this. Don't drain it because you're going to need that liquid for future steps. So our potatoes are still baking. I have them on the oven at 425 and at every half hour, well, I shouldn't say every half hour. After half hour, I'm going to flip them and then I'm going to let them cook for another 30 minutes until they are tender, and by the time that is here, this should all be done. But you're just going to cook your carrots and onions for 5 to 7 minutes until your onions are nice and translucent. So I've added 3-ish cloves of garlic. I had a couple little baby ones, so I just threw them in there. So there's about 4 cloves of garlic. Mix this all nice up. I have my heat on medium. If you're cooking and you notice that your vegetables or your onions start to brown, you're going to have your heat too high. You want everything to be nice and sizzling, but you don't want it to be burning. So what I'm going to do here next is I'm going to add the meat. You are then going to add 1.5 tablespoons of flour. Mix that up. So basically the same ingredients as last week. Again, I definitely apologize, but this just shows how you can have multiple ingredients and they all can kind of just make similar but different dishes. So 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of low sodium soy sauce. And then 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. And then you're going to mix this up real good. The recipe also calls for like 2 teaspoons of thyme, but I'm just going to add some in. I'm also going to throw in some red pepper flakes. is 1 cup of vegetable broth, low sodium. If you make this recipe with beef, I would suggest using 1.5 cups of beef broth, which is what the recipe calls for because they make theirs with beef. So we're just going to stir this up, and then we are going to let this simmer and get all nice and yummy. The last ingredient that I'm adding is a cup of peas. I'm going to do just a little bit more than a cup of peas. As you can tell, these are very freezer burnt, and they just need to get used up. So if you haven't noticed, after you kind of let your, I guess you could call these your fillings, set up, they get a little bit thicker, which is exactly what we want. I am going to cook these peas. I have about 5-10 minutes left on my potatoes, and then I'll show you guys this plated up. Like I said, this is very similar to last week's video. However, this was so yummy, so I'm not even mad about it. It tastes great. Just some personal reviews from last week's food. It tastes great when you let it be in the fridge. Mitchell ate his on like Thursday and said how good it was. So this is definitely a recipe I would make again. I already can tell. And you can always spice things up. You can switch ingredients out. If you have coconut aminos, you can use that instead of soy sauce. If you know of a better recipe but you like the concept of this, feel free to suggest those recipes. I love hearing from you guys, and let me know if you guys try this recipe or not. You're gonna want to make sure when you plate it that you don't totally like crush your potato open. Like, this is the goal you want. My first potato I did, I just like destroyed it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix this up real quick, and then we're just gonna take a good old hearty serving, maybe a little more, just because I'm hungry. And there you guys go. Here she be, you guys. This is a cottage baked potato. Cottage pie baked potato. I forgot what it's called. You can top this with cheese, whatever you want to. You can top it with nothing. I will probably just put a little bit of salt and pepper on it because I didn't include that in my main dish. I hope if you guys try this recipe, you love it. Have a good night.